Hello and welcome to the BattleHawk BlastCast, a weekly podcast where we discuss BattleHawks players, game recaps, and XFL news. I am your co-host Stone, and with me is the other co-host Travis.
How's it going, Stone?
That sounded really organic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In this podcast, we'll be discussing the XFL with a focus specifically on the St. Louis BattleHawks, and each week we're going to highlight a specific player. We're going to break down the game from the previous weekend, and we'll be talking about XFL news in each one of our episodes. This particular episode, we will only be talking about Week 1 against Dallas, but we are recording this post-Week 2. We will be putting out a Week 2 episode before Week 3 starts, but we really didn't get on this podcast train until a little bit late. But before we get started, let's take a second to introduce ourselves. So, Travis, I asked to you.
Yes.
What is your NFL team?
So my favorite NFL team is the Indianapolis Colts. Some may ask why, and it's purely because of Peyton Manning. That's literally the only reason. I used to be an Eagles fan, but that ended, as you know, I'm sure you're happy with, since you're, well,
ecstatic.
Yeah, but we're in Pennsylvania here, so there's not a lot of Indianapolis fans, and there's also not a lot of BattleHawks fans.
Well,
but
I don't know. I think
found
that
some.
Pennsylvania is the unofficial home of the BattleHawks. If I had to, from what we've seen so far,
specifically our house
yes,
when we watch the
one tiny section of Pennsylvania is the unofficial home of the BattleHawks.
Yeah, it's the second home to the BattleHawks. I don't think they officially recognize it, but maybe in time. Maybe in time they will.
I've known that you were a Colts fan because of Peyton Manning, but like you started watching football far before that time, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I watched sports pretty much my entire life, and when I was younger, I used to kind of just always fall in line with Philly teams because my dad's a huge Philly fan, much to your chagrin.
We all make mistakes.
But it over the course of the years, some sports teams I stuck with Philly teams, some I went away from. One of them was in the NFL. I moved to the Colts just because I liked watching Peyton Manning throw the ball a lot. And I think a lot of Colts fans kind of did the same. So, but yeah, like back when the Eagles had, McNabb and T.O., like that's when I was still a fan, back in our younger days, because we're so old now. But that's when I was a fan, and then all those guys kind of started going away, and Peyton Manning was there and lighting it up, and that's when I kind of shifted there. And for all those that say I might be a bandwagon fan, they won the Super Bowl the year after I started liking them. So that's not a fact. And
you're sticking with them now. So you're definitely not a
bandwagon. And I am
fan.
still with them, even though they really don't have a quarterback at the moment. I mean, Brissett's fine, but Tom Brady maybe? I don't know.
It's looking interesting, but that's a whole nother story.
That's NFL news. This is XFL news.
Well,
so
look, they're not exclusive to each other. We will discuss NFL news when it becomes a big deal. And Brady going somewhere, I'm sure, will be a definite point of discussion.
I don't think it'll be that big of news, to be honest.
In fact, Breeze just declared he's coming back.
He did.
Which is
coming back and likely with the Saints. So
I think they said earlier that they'd take him if he wanted to come back. It was all on him.
Yeah, I mean he runs
Who wouldn't? It's
he runs that franchise.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they?
Okay, we're already talking, and this is Travis's introduction.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So in that vein, I'll just say mine. This is Travis's introduction, but I think it's worth noting that from one Manning to another, New York Giants fan here. Now, unlike you, I was born into it. You simply adopted your team. I was born into it, molded by disappointment. New York Giants fan in Pennsylvania. It is rough because you're surrounded by Eagles fans, but What I can say about Eagles fans is they share a real passionate hatred for Dallas, which is refreshing at times.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that's also just not Eagles fans. That's just the rest of the world as
That's
well.
true. Yeah. Dallas is easily the most hated, at least on the East Coast, and I'm sure a lot of the Midwest. But I think...
Sorry, Cowboys fans.
Yeah, for sure. They know. They have to know.
They're aware.
They have to know, and New England has to know. But the New England hates just because they win. But
that's fair.
You know, what can you do?
All right. And cheat. But
we're just talking about the NFL on a specific BattleHawks podcast. So the XFL, the NFL season ends. What drew you to start watching the XFL?
Honestly, since I was a kid, I watched WWE religiously and still have. So back in the first terrible incarnation of the XFL,
yes,
I was super into that until I was like, this isn't football. This is what I watch when I watch wrestling. Like,
not good.
Yeah, it really wasn't. The only good thing that came out of the original XFL is that they realized they didn't need to change the coin toss.
He hate me.
Yeah, well, that everybody knows he hate me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so honestly, it was on my radar the second they came out and were like, hey, we're doing this again. And in between that and the league actually starting, of course, the AAF came out. And I was like, oh, yeah, here's another league. That's fine. And then that one was not good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was it was more so of like I was kind of interested. And then when the AAF started and that was not great, I was like, okay, I'm kind of more interested in this XFL because now I at that moment I was like, okay, there's going to be 2 leagues. That'll be awesome. Yeah. One flunked out before the season even ended. And I was like, all right, hopefully this one is really good or at least decent. So that's kind of what drew me to this incarnation of the XFL so far.
That's also like, I was never like fiending for spring football, you know?
Right.
Like when football ended, then I had hockey, you know? And I just switched over to that. So it's interesting that you were specifically seeking it out.
Well, it's for me. So I although I watch pretty much every sport, for me, there's football season and then there's baseball season.
That's fair.
And so usually when football season ends, I start kicking into baseball season.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a 2-month period in between football and baseball season where either nothing's happening or like it's just spring training or like I get pumped. I'm the type of person, and a lot of baseball people are, that like I get pumped up when they're like, hey, the equipment's going down to Florida. And I'm like, awesome. Like this is like, it's baseball season. Let's go.
Yeah.
So to have some extra football in between that, like, then I mean, I'm totally down for it because at the end of baseball season, football's starting up, so those kind of just naturally overlap, and you know, it's like a 2-month period that I've got nothing other than basketball or hockey, and I don't watch that as much as I do those two.
And the other thing is like you're just like a fan of everything, so you're also kind of spoiled because you got tons of games of baseball.
Yes.
Tons of games of hockey.
162.
Tons of games of NBA. Like,
yeah,
the NFL always shortchanges you on the number of games, but it makes sense because people are withering away and dying playing constant games.
The NFL is one of those where it's like it starts, and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I've got this entire year of the NFL, and then in a blink of an eye, it's gone. You're just like, where the heck did this?
Yeah, and the games run together.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, because like when I first started getting into hockey, like my girlfriend got me into it, and then I'd be looking at stats. Like this is when Matt Murray was starting. I'm a Penguins fan, so when Matt Murray was starting, it'd be like, these are his stats for the first 62 games. I'm like, 62? What the hell? And then like I come to realize like, yeah, obviously the NFL is like chump change when you're looking at the number of games compared.
Yeah, I mean, and then you say there's 62, and then I compare it to
baseball.
Baseball's first 130 games of the year. He's hit this, and it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of what happens. They play every single day for 6 months.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I understand from your perspective of fiending for a spring league.
Yeah.
For me, I also thought, like, when somebody says the XFL, you obviously think of the old XFL.
You can't help but not.
So when I heard it was coming back, like I heard rumblings and rumors that it was coming back, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see this dumpster fire part 2. Like, I want to see Vince McMahon learning nothing.
Right.
And then I had heard about it, and it kind of flamed out. And then watching the games with you, the NFL games, you were like, oh, you ready for the XFL coming back? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. It is still happening. Right. And then we started seeing more rules come out. And we started to see like the commissioner Luck is really good. He's like really on it, and like, oh, this is serious.
Yeah,
like I started getting way more excited.
Right, and what got exciting is when you start seeing some of the rule changes, and it's like, okay, well that one makes sense. Like that one makes sense. Like it sounded
is a faster game in all the right ways.
Right, and it like at first it sounded like, It didn't sound as gimmicky as the original, because I don't know if you watched the original at all, but they changed rules every week, and that's not an exaggeration. They literally changed rules every single week because they're like, well, I don't like this, changing it. They had wrestling commentators commenting the game, and it was just awkward and terrible.
Just had no idea.
And so to see these rules, it's like, well, some of them are a little gimmicky, some of them might work out, but I mean, for years the NFL's been trying to solve the whole kickoff problem,
and they've solved it.
And
in no time.
Like I'm pretty confident that they will adopt something similar to this in a few years.
Without a doubt, yeah. And it's like, all of the rule changes coming up to the season. It's like, that's interesting, but like it's so much harder to convey with words than it is by showing you. So coming up, they'd be like, oh yeah, there's the double like forward pass as long as you're behind the line of scrimmage, and it's like, wait, I don't get it. Like, and then you get granular, like, okay, it clicks, and then you see it in action, you're like, duh, why isn't that in the NFL? Like, that's so obvious to me. And that's not a great example because that one's kind of easy to understand if somebody tells you, but like a lot of those rule changes seemed like I was describing it to you beforehand, like a bunch of middle schoolers talking around like, we could make a better NFL. Like, what if they could all hit each other at full speed?
Right. And that was honestly the first incarnation of it back in the day.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
People, and by people, it's probably just Vince McMahon, got in a room and was just like, I don't like this. This is happening now. And it's like, this one.
Have The Rock introduce it.
Let them know.
Yeah. So overall, I'm definitely excited. Like, your excitement definitely brought me into it, and then seeing those rule changes, I was hooked. And those rule changes, like, they really only released them pretty soon before the league started, like 2 or 3 weeks. Playoffs had started for the NFL.
Yeah, it was a few weeks into it. They put those out there.
Yeah, and they needed, if they would have put those out further, and I guarantee they weren't all like ironed out completely.
Yeah.
But I think if they had put those out sooner, they would have even bigger opening numbers in week 1 than they already had, which were pretty sizable. I think it's definitely more than they had anticipated.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, because they had in week 1 there, they had Oliver Luck on during the BattleHawks game, and Pat McAfee, who I love, by the way.
I wonder why.
Yeah, right. He had asked him, like, is this better than what you could have imagined? He was just like, yeah. Because I mean, you always hope that the first week is gonna go super well,
right?
But
that's your peak.
Yeah. In reality, though, you're like, okay, this is what we're shooting for, and it was clear that it exceeded not only his expectations, not only the XFL's expectations, but everybody. Like, even the fans, like the people watching it were like, wow, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah. As of the time of us recording this, they have yet to release the viewership numbers for the XFL. So we haven't seen those. But by all the other metrics, which we can kind of physically measure, like, they put a cap on everything. The stadium attendance was capped, and most all have come close to, if not hit them.
Yeah.
BattleHawks week 3 has just sold out.
Yes.
But merch sales, everything on the BattleHawks website is on
I do have some breaking news.
I am ready for it in a moment. But
about merch sales. Though.
Yes. But that, and not just BattleHawks, like a lot of teams have sold out inventory. And obviously, those are hard numbers you can quantify. They accounted for this much, they're over. That's good. Like, all of these metrics they have hit and exceeded specifically in merch sales because they have none available.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
so I think the
it's been
viewership
incredible.
numbers are going to go, and it's been pretty constant. I think there was a rise of about 3,000 from week 1 to week 2 in live attendance at games.
I didn't see that. Wouldn't be shocked though.
Yeah, I don't have the hard numbers in front of me, and we'll talk about it more in the week 2 discussion, but I did see like one of the stadiums went from like 17,000, they opened up a few more sections, and it sold like 22,000, I think, in attendance, which is huge.
I know in week 2, like Seattle, that was their first home game. They sold out.
Yeah.
I mean, like you already said, St. Louis sold out for week 3. That's
Yeah,
their
which is
first
their first
game.
home. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely, and I don't know if you had already mentioned this. They already had more at the end of week 1. They had more ticket sales than that AAF league I mentioned. I mean, that just goes to show you that are they going like the big question everybody's asking is like, are they going to last? Is it going to keep going? And it's like, well, you don't know, but they're
set up for 3 years.
They're doing well at the moment.
They're going for 3 years, period.
Yeah.
Even if it slowly declines. And you know what I think also what it says is people want football faster. They don't want beer ad sales. You know, like they don't want a league that's just a way to deliver commercials to you. And even so, the XFL could subsidize less commercials by tarping off those sections of the stands they're not selling with ads.
Yeah.
Like there's easy ways for the league to survive without becoming the NFL
they could,
as it stands now.
I mean, clearly
they have advertisements on the field, you know?
Right.
I see Progressive every game and I hate it. But
clearly they already have an initiative to be different from different aspects. Right. So it's like it wouldn't shock me if they start doing things like that. I mean, you got hell in hockey, like you've got ads around the entire rink.
Yeah.
Like
baseball behind the dugout, on the dugouts and yeah.
So
and it's also like it's not on ESPN 40, like it's on premier channels. Mm-hmm. It's actually being promoted. It's being taken very seriously. And I think I could be wrong. I believe the budget is $500 million for 3 years. Is Vince McMahon set that aside for it?
I don't remember what the number is. That kind of sounds familiar.
I'll find a source for the next episode because that is a lot to just be wrong about.
Yeah, I don't know if it's $500 million.
Well, across 3 years.
Yeah, I do know initially. Now this was way back when they first announced it, so we're talking like a year and a half or so. They had put out numbers and said financially they had already put aside the money that they were good to go for 2 years. That it would. Then that was a lot of people's question: would it even last one? And it's like, well, they already got the money for 2. Exactly. So as long as they stick to their current not current, but the financial plan at that time, they're going to play 2 years.
Plus, year 1 is the most expensive. You have to stand everything up. You have to get the organization started and everything. Right.
So you don't know if you're going to get revenue, period. Yeah. So it's like it's not only is it the most expensive, it's the most risky. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, even with 8 teams, the operating costs are huge.
Yes.
But I think already they're seeing a return on that. I mean, they sold out games already.
Yeah.
Not a ton of them, but some of them.
Yeah, and unlike the AAF, they actually have TV deals that are making them money.
Yeah.
Because that was AAF's downfall, was they just wanted, if I recall, they just wanted to be on TV. They just wanted the notoriety of like, hey, this football league's happening. So if I'm correct on it, they weren't making anything off of those. CBS and forget who the other, I think it was like TNT was just like, yeah, sure, we'll put you on. Yeah. Whereas like the XFL is actually making money off of Fox, ESPN. Yeah. They have a correct TV deal that's generating income.
And they could make more by just tarping the second floor of all the stadiums.
Yeah, and that's smart for them also to not try to sell those, because it's in reality they're not going to sell out like an NFL game does, right?
Yeah.
So if they do allow ticket sales on like the upper rings, well then visually that just doesn't look good when there's not even that many people up.
That's happening in an upcoming game this week. I think they started selling on the second level, but I think they said they're keeping it tighter on just the first level, like the cameras. And I like that. I think it feels more intimate when you're watching it. Like you feel closer to the action, not just because the cameraman is in everybody's way between all the plays, but like because it's actually like tighter on the field, and it's just like the focus is the field, you know? It's not the pageantry around it.
I know in St. Louis they said that they were at the Dome, they didn't sell the upper ring and they were dimming the lights there, so you couldn't even can't even see it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that just makes you look like you've got a full house then.
Yeah, but then also the stadiums where it's blatant that they didn't sell the second ring, like you'll see these numbers come out that, you know, they sold so well, and then when you watch the game, it's like, well, that looks empty. Like to a casual viewer, then it's like, is this worth watching if people aren't even going to the games, you know?
I understand that viewpoint. I think most people, though, when they go like, oh, well, nobody's up there, then I think they'll put two and two together. Yeah. But, I mean, I understand what you're saying. There's definitely some people that would look at it and be like, oh, those seats are empty. And it's like, well, they actually technically sold out. It's
typically when you think of the layperson sports fan, though, you're not thinking of a professor. You know?
That's fair. I mean, I'm not. That's for sure. I don't.
I mean, people will talk like, I guarantee there's people out there talking trash on the XFL and not having watched a single game just because they only know the old XFL, you know?
So, you know, I keep I post on the Twitterverse, and I'd responded to a guy. He had responded to somebody about, you know, the XFL being so much better than the rigged NFL because nobody in the NFL, like no small market teams in the NFL ever have a chance of making the Super Bowl. And like that's where part of it's like you either have people that actually look these things up and know these facts, or they don't. Yeah. And it's a toss up where you're going to get it. Because if the guy knew the facts, Kansas City, who just won the Super Bowl, has like the fourth or fifth smallest market in the entire NFL. And it's like, so clearly his point there, little off. But
also imagine a world where everyone had the same cap and there was a draft set up so that the worst teams got the best picks.
Yeah.
Like, imagine a world where that was fair.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't understand how you could make that kind of comment, but like I don't know. And it didn't make much sense to me either, because 7 out of the 8 teams in the XFL are teams that already have NFL teams, are bigger market teams like
Dallas. Yeah. I mean,
you're talking, well, all of them. Dallas, Houston, LA, New York. Like, St. Louis is the only one that doesn't have an NFL team and is also one of these smaller markets in professional sport.
Well, let's talk about that, actually. Because that leads me into, well, I mean, this is still our introductions, but the question I wanted to ask is, why choose the BattleHawks? And actually, that is the reason why I chose the BattleHawks. Even though I'm in Pennsylvania, even though I'm a Giants fan, so what happened is I had gone over to your house to watch the games, and you said, hey, they published the different teams for the XFL. You want to check them out? I was like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But you gave it to me, and I have to thank you for doing it this way. You gave me the cities first. You didn't tell me the names, and then you gave me the names, and then you showed me the logos after it.
Yeah.
But you told me the cities, and I'm going down in my head like, okay, I'm not interested. They're not close. Like, I was thinking closest, but not Philly. Like, I'll cheer for a Pittsburgh team, but not Philly. Yeah. And then you said New York. I don't have any alliance to New York as a city. Like, I was just born a Giants fan because we lived in New Jersey. And so I don't really care about New York. But the second you said St. Louis, I was like, oh, they don't have an NFL team. That's who I want to cheer for. Like, I love a city that's coming up on their own. Like, I don't want them to be part of an NFL. So yeah, as soon as you said St. Louis, I was like, whatever their team is, I'm in. And then you're like, okay, they're the BattleHawks. I was like, that sounds baller. I'm in. And then you're like, okay, look at this logo. And I was like, that is incredible. I made the absolute correct choice. But even if they looked like the awful Dragons, even if it was the St. Louis Dragons and they had that like dumb logo, I would still cheer for them because I love the idea of a non-NFL market, like having their own team. Right. And you know what? I'm used to bleeding blue already.
Same. The colors are literally not any different from my Colts fandom. So
yeah, same. I'm wearing a Giant shirt underneath this, and you would think it was a like a St. Louis. I do also like that they kept it in line with the Blues, like their hockey team.
Yeah, I don't know if that was necessarily intentional or not, but
I have a feeling it is. Like Pittsburgh does that with all their teams. They changed like the Penguins to be the yellow and black, and the Pirates and the. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case at all.
And you had said about how I asked you what XFL team you want. Like I did that with all of our friends. I did that in the AAF when that started. I just went one by one to each person we knew and was just like, pick a team. Yeah. And I just gave them the logos that had their names on. I was like, pick a team. In that league, every single person we knew picked a different team somehow. I think like 2 were the same.
And we're talking like 8 people we watch with typically. I mean, you asked more, but our regular crew is about 7 people.
That we've had the last 2 weeks. It's about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So it's not a small group.
No. Yeah. And then going into this, I did the exact same thing. You were the only one that I gave the lineup like city.
And I'm so happy you did.
Yeah, but everybody else, I just like sent a picture and was like, pick one of these teams. And for some reason, every single person except for like 2 came back and was like,
don't say for some reason. You know why?
Well, it was just funny because to me it's like the AAF, it was so spread out, and then this one it's like everybody we knew picked the BattleHawks, which has kind of led to this. We've gotten people together and have cheered probably harder than anybody out of St. Louis has cheered for this team over the last 2 weeks.
Also, and then let's take a second. This is called the BattleHawk BlastCast.
Yes.
And there is a reason we have that name. Would you like to tell people why that is? In fact, you are indulging in...
I'm indulging in one right now. I don't really... I mean, I do know how it started. I just don't know exactly what started it. But
go ahead.
Where we watch, the location where we watch the BattleHawks games and any football game is located next to a Taco Bell, for those that don't know.
Less than a minute away.
Yeah. And of course, one of the best things on the Taco Bell menu is the Baja Blast.
The only reason to go.
Yeah. And I think the one day you got like 3 of them, 4 of them, brought them over.
I had stayed at your house like all day to watch the games. Well, not all day, but since they start at 1. And between games, I was going to run to Taco Bell to grab food. And I was going to get one for me and one for my fiance. And then our friend said, hey, can you pick me one up? And that started a whole train of, hey, can you pick me one up? Hey, can you pick... And so I come back with 5 or 6 Baja Blasts. We start watching the game. Everyone's into it, drinking Baja Blast, just getting sugared up.
Yeah, so then it at one point, I think I coined the phrase BattleHawk Blast.
Yeah, I want to say that was you.
I'm pretty sure it was me. I don't necessarily want to take credit for it, but I think I said it first. I don't really recall.
Yeah, and since then it is, and by since then I mean for 2 weeks, it is now an official BattleHawks tradition that we get a lot of BattleHawk blasts for everybody. Right. And and we, because they're the appropriate color for the most part, although they are slightly closer to Dallas, but still.
Yeah, it's teal.
They are, they're our official drink, but if somebody is there and not a BattleHawks fan, they just get a Baja Blast if they get anything. Usually they get to eat dirt.
Usually. That's best case scenario.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, you speak of when you brought those 5 or 6 over, our one friend then had texted me and was like, it was like 2 minutes after you got back in the house with them. He texted me, he's like, hey, going to Taco Bell, you want anything? And then I just sent him a picture of all the BattleHawk Blasts sitting around, and I was just like, I think we're good. Yeah. And
then you also told him you need to get one.
Well, that was week 2. You brought 4. I told him he needed to get one. One of our other friends came
with too many. We had too many BattleHawk Blasts.
We had a total of 8. Yeah, last week, which led to our one friend double fisting them at one point. But sugar rush.
So we've already started a BattleHawks tradition, and from that tradition, the BattleHawk BlastCast has now evolved.
Yes.
So, wow, all that was just our introduction to the XFL and why we chose the BattleHawks.
Welcome.
But, yeah, absolutely. I think it really rounds out. Well, because we don't have a lot of news to discuss because this is our week 1 discussion. But what we do want to talk about is probably a player you've been hearing a lot about if you're watching the BattleHawks, or if you're interested in getting into the XFL. Possibly the most important player on the BattleHawks would be our quarterback, arguably, to some. Don't want to seem biased, but Jordan.
He's been up there.
Well, I mean, when you are getting into football specifically, you want to know at least one person's name and who's touching the ball the most.
Quarterback is usually the one to go with. It also helps the XFL every week after each week's games puts out. They have people vote on who they think the player of the week was in the XFL, and they put out one from each team. Yeah. He has been the person from the BattleHawks each week. So It's a good pick. It's a good pick to start, I would say.
Yes, Jordan Ta'amu. Ta'amu, sorry.
Amu.
Yes, is the BattleHawks quarterback.
The throwing Samoan, as I've found out.
Yes. Yeah, so we've done some light research on him.
Very light.
Because really, I mean, there's not a lengthy career to pull from. I mean, there's a college career.
When you say lengthy career, I mean, no, it's not lengthy whatsoever. I mean, obviously,
especially what's on film,
right? He doesn't have,
because he had a big high school career, he had a big JUCO career, but his college career is pretty limited. For like
Yeah, he's actually and one of the fun facts is he's actually the has the least professional experience, and when I say least, I mean he had none really. Out of the 8 starting quarterbacks that were drafted, allocated, I don't know if you actually know how that worked.
I don't.
I'm not even 100% sure on it. There was before the season they took like a pool of quarterbacks, and each team there was like a draft order. They were allocated like one quarterback. He was ours. He was the BattleHawks. But we could get into that later when I actually know what the heck happened.
We have a lot of research to do for week 2.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so he's the quarterback with the least professional experience out of those first 8. Because all the other ones had at least done something in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Now he was in the NFL for a solid like 20 days. Mm-hmm. And it was in the preseason, and he didn't do a lot. So, but yeah, I mean,
it's also worth noting he's only 22.
Yes,
he's pretty young.
Yeah, he's very young. When I say least professional experience, that's not because he hasn't done anything. Yeah. Or I mean, he hasn't done anything in the NFL, but that's not like he's been out there for like 5 years. Like he's just out of college.
He's not a nomad quarterback that's been jumping team to team.
Yeah, in 2019. Was his first. He went undrafted, and that was got signed by Houston, and that was his first professional experience. Mm-hmm. And then when they cut him, it was like 2 months later, he got allocated to St. Louis, and then 4 months later, he's here.
Yeah.
So,
and we have 2 weeks to go off of, but I wouldn't be surprised if he starts getting called up to some NFL teams just to try out on the practice squad,
right.
He's not starting.
No, there's
not from we've seen yet.
So far in the 2 weeks we've seen, there's 3 quarterbacks that I've seen that have played well both weeks. There was 2 Landry Jones and Josh Johnson who played in Dallas and LA respectively. They were both injured week 1, so they didn't play. Those 2 were probably the bigger names going into the league.
Landry Jones was a big story.
Yeah, Landry Jones has been touted as the face of the league, but they were both hurt, so they didn't play week 1. Week 2, they both put on a pretty decent performance. Mm-hmm. But the 3 other guys that have done really well both weeks is our guy Ta'amu, Cardale Jones from DC.
Yeah, looking good.
And I know him as Phillip, but PJ Walker from Houston, he used to be a Colt.
If I had to put my money on it right now, I think Walker's the best quarterback in the XFL.
He looks
right
really
now.
good. I coined him there week 2 as the XFL Michael Vick, just because he was escaping. I was cheering, thinking he was sacked, and then next thing I know, he's running away for 20 yards.
We'll talk about it in week 2. It's a combination of bad tackling and also the guy has a lot of skill.
He's got some skill.
If I have to say like best quarterback in the XFL right now, he's got my vote. But like Ta'amu's in the conversation, you know.
Yeah, Walker's played really well the first 2 weeks. We'll obviously see how it goes the rest of the season.
And again, that is a sample size of 2.
A sample size of 2 weeks. Yeah. Yeah, definitely did 2 weeks.
But let's talk about his college career. What's Ta'amu going on? Where did he get his name?
His name, he got that from his parents. But fair. Yeah, he's from Hawaii, right? He did his freshman and sophomore year at New Mexico Military Institute, where you told me that he didn't like that his head was.
He did not like shaving his head, apparently. And you know what? I couldn't find I don't want to even say a lot of film. I don't know if I could find any film from that time. And I'm sure that they had it because he had to get called up to it.
I didn't see it, but I also didn't really look for it. Yeah. So
it was not readily available to me, but I'm sure if I dedicated some more time, I could find film from his junior college years.
Probably.
But honestly, I am assuming that he learned a lot from it because like a military college, when he came off the sidelines in every one of those interviews, he was cool, calm, collected. Like I think he's like a steadfast leader. It appears in these first 2 weeks, and I think he probably got that from going to a military college for 2 years. Yeah. I think it's fair to say that he got a lot of discipline there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speculate because I don't obviously.
Yeah, we don't know.
But I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. The dude, when he came off the field, like that was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm really into this dude because he didn't the first week he didn't start out great, and he definitely, but he stayed calm, and that was like that's the part of a quarterback you always want to see.
Yeah.
Is what do they do when the pressure's on or things just aren't going the way they want it to at first? How do they react? And I mean, he reacted exactly how he'd wanted to. He didn't look like anything was going on.
Yeah. And you know what the other great part is that I learned in just those interviews? That dude is not as winded as everybody else. No, for as much as he runs, he comes off into those interviews and he's talking like he did a light jog. Yeah. You know, like not only is he just calm, level-headed, like he didn't get overboard excited, but he also didn't get overboard frustrated. Like he stays exactly in that headspace that you should be. And again, this is just based off of interviews for 2 weeks, so we could be wrong. But
does he have a tantrum week 3? Then this entire thing is null and void.
Then it's null and void.
But yeah, at the moment, I agree. I mean, I also I'd seen some of his interviews from when he was his next stop was the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss. I'd seen some of his interviews from that, and same way. Like he's very disciplined when he talks and when he speaks. He doesn't just seem like he shoots from the hip. I mean, he is a young kid. Part of it's probably he's a little camera shy, a little microphone shy at the moment. Who knows? But I mean, it's things you want to see from your quarterback. I mean, he's not going to make as many headlines as Matt McGloin did this past week, but again, talk about that later.
And we'll talk about his Ole Miss days in one sec. I do just want to say that also I watched the post-game interviews for week 1 with him, and even in the interviews, they were talking about, like, what's your strategy? He's like, just stay calm, execute the plan. You know, the play that just happened is done. We're on the next play now. So it doesn't matter if we lost yards on the last one or if we made a huge gain, it's done. And I love that, like, his mentality shows through so much. And again, it's a huge assumption to make. It's probably the way he was raised too, but I'm sure that going to a military college also helped put that.
Yeah, I don't think it hurt.
You can't say 100%.
I don't think it hurt.
But yeah. Sorry. So he moves to Ole Miss, and what's the story there?
Oh yeah, so he for junior year he goes to Ole Miss. He's actually the backup there. He was a backup to Shea Patterson, who Michigan Wolverine fans might know. Whether they like him or dislike him. I always see a lot of dislike when when Michigan games were on this past year, but nonetheless. So yeah, in his junior year, Patterson had gotten hurt, so Ta'amu was able to start. I think it was the last five games of the year. Didn't do too bad. Nothing off the charts, but apparently that was enough to kind of give him some traction to be the starter his senior year, which also helped when Patterson left to go to Michigan.
I also, sorry if I can interject for a second. Travis is my college football guy because I don't watch. In fact, well, Travis is just the general sports guy.
The general
for me.
sports, and not just for you, anybody I know, really. Yeah.
So Travis is my sports guy, so he knows better. I had seen the stats for his first 2 starts, and I don't know if this is good for college. I know they score a lot higher. Like there's a lot more going on in college yardage-wise. But I thought I saw in his first game he threw for like 248, I want to say. And his second game was like 265 or something like that. How does that stack up for a quarterback? Like for a start coming off, like to start for an injured.
I mean, stats translate pretty similarly. You usually see some higher ones in college because the level of competition in some games compared to others. Now I don't know who those games were against. I didn't see that, but he was the Ole Miss is in the SEC. He was playing against SEC defenses, which are notably usually the better defenses in the nation. I am not an SEC biased person, so I will say that. I like Texas, who has noticeably bad defenses usually, and but yeah, those numbers are still pretty decent. I think in those 5 games he finished with over 1,600 yards, and he had 11 touchdowns to 4 interceptions.
I mean, for 5 games, that sounds good to me as an NFL fan.
Right.
Yeah.
As a guy that, I mean, was your backup to start the year. They didn't do well as a team, but that also might be a team thing. That's the team.
I also do want to say that I did look up some of his college stats. I looked at a lot of highlight reels. I also saw interviews with the other players he was playing against. And what really impressed me was that, well, first of all, and I know these are the highlights, so it's the best of the best. But, man, he was throwing some lasers, like, right in their numbers. It looked super accurate, like what I was seeing from him in college. And even as much as he's on the run, like, he was making plays happen, like, putting it in people's hands. And I thought he looked really good based on his college highlights there. But also, like, all the interviews with his teammates right after that injury, like, they were calling him Mariota pretty immediately after it happened. And, I mean, they rallied around him so well. And I think that speaks to his teammates. But then I think that also speaks to how much of a leader he is. Like, that cool, calm, collected thing we were talking about, the discipline that he has. I think that helps people get on his side better. And it allows him to, like, play with players' trust, which is why he can hit them right in the numbers. Because they're going to run their route. He's going to trust them to run their route. And they both know where the ball's going to end up, you know?
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, just from, again, 2 games into the season. Always got to state that.
Just assume there's always an asterisk when we talk about everything for this beginning part of the season.
2 games in, I mean, whether it's on the field or off the field, he looks like the type of guy you want to carry a team with. Yeah. I mean, hell, I'd feel probably better if he was the Colts quarterback at the moment. But yeah, go ahead.
I think another reason I'm so drawn to that attitude specifically is because, like, I'm a Giants fan for so long. Like, that's Eli to me. Right. Eli's just the guy that, first of all, I think Eli's just incapable of emotions. It's not that he's not showing emotions.
Shout out to Eli.
So, and, you know, Samo luckily doesn't have Eli face all the time, but I think he has that same attitude, and that's what attracts me to the quarterback. But, yeah, I think that's why the chemistry for our team at the beginning of the year has been so good so far. It's just because, like he's a rock you can hold on to.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. And I know you guys, when we watch the games, our head coach, John, you know where I'm going with this, Jonathan Hayes. Every time this man is on camera, he So Stone has said he has an Eli face, which to him means he just doesn't know what's going on. And I have stated that I like that in a head coach because like I don't think he actually is thinking that, like it's just in his head. He's thinking like, okay, what am I gonna do here? What am I gonna do here? And I'd personally rather that than a guy who you could tell is just angry, irritated, yelling at everybody. Like I know it's not great video or audio, but
I mean, to me, that's home. Like Eli always had that. Right. Tom Coughlin got mad all the time, but he was never happy. Like that to me is home. And I think that's why these two work so well together, Hayes and Ta'amu, because they both have that, like, don't show the weakness. It's the next play now. The last play happened, good or bad. We're on this one now. And, like, what's our next play after this?
Yeah, and that's coming from Colts fan. That's when we won the Super Bowl back in 2006. We had Dungy and Peyton. Like Peyton was more fired up than what Tony Dungy had ever gotten. What you see on Sunday Night Football when they're cutting to him talking about the halftime or whatever, like that's how he was when he coached. Yeah. He like doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't swear. He doesn't do anything. Yeah. So this guy just kind of reminds me of that. Yeah. In his own way.
It's our exact middle ground.
Yeah. 100% agree.
We got a little sidetracked here. Go back. We talked about the last 5 games was junior year, senior year. Where do we go from there?
Yeah, so senior year, he played the entire year. Like I said, Shea Patterson transferred then to Michigan. So Tom, it was the starter. One of his wide receivers that year, little fun fact, is DK Metcalf.
Yes, I saw those highlights.
Seattle, or as Booger McFarland likes to call him, Decaf Metcalf. But yeah, he had a pretty decent year. Ole Miss didn't. I think they were 5-7, 6-6, something like that. Yeah. But he almost had 4,000 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
Do you have his running stats?
342.
He is
and 6 touchdowns.
Mobile.
Yeah, he's very fast.
Love it.
Well, it's weird. He's not. I wouldn't say he's like the fastest person I've ever seen, but he finds a hole and he hits it hard. Exactly. And then he accelerates pretty well.
In the XFL that we've seen, again, I don't know if you know this, but this is just based off 2 weeks. When he finds the hole, he's good for a first down a lot of times. Yeah. Like he has multiple 10+ yard runs already.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem like he looks to run first, but if something's just not there, he goes.
They have run a few design quarterback runs, specifically.
Yeah, he had a big 30, 40-yard run where they just called it as a QB run. It was like 3rd and 7 or 8 or something like that, and they snapped the ball. He took a step back and then just started running, ran straight into his center, and then took a step right. Yeah, and then all of a sudden there was 30, 40 yards of just green grass.
I thought he was going to get grabbed for that too. When he hit his center, I thought the guy he was blocking was going to grab him, and he still made it happen.
Yeah, it was a split second of it turned from, oh great, this is a 4th down, to, oh my God, he's gonna score a touchdown. But then he got tackled at the 8 or.
To me, it seems like the run is another option that he's not afraid to exercise. But the fact that from what we've seen so far, he's pretty accurate. He's a pretty safe quarterback. It's nice to know that he has that tool in his toolkit. But he's not Michael Vick. He's not even PJ Walker that we've seen so far.
Philip Walker, yes. Yeah, I mean, through 2 games, he has 109 rushing yards.
Just pretty good.
So that's not bad.
He's accounting for 60 yards a game average,
Yeah, he's been pretty, well, after 1 week, I should say. Not 2.
I don't mean to keep referencing it back to this, but it is it's really exciting for me to watch it this way because I'm a Giants fan. And they always played traditional quarterback. They're always in the pocket. Manning never left the pocket the whole time. Even before that, we had Kerry Collins and Kurt Warner. Not very mobile quarterbacks. So, watching Ta'amu be that mobile, but also not relying entirely on his mobility is really exciting to me. That's why I'm, such a fan of the XFL so far. Partly because it's a play style I'm not used to. But on top of that, it's fast, Like, they look like professionals, even though they're not NFL caliber players.
They're right there.
Yeah. I think, the XFL, that's why it's so attractive to me.
I forget who it was on one of the broadcasts that mentioned, one of the guys had mentioned that, like, these aren't the top NFL guys, but they're like the 40 to 50 guys on the roster, you know? So it's like, they're still professional football players. They're not the guys who are used to playing every Sunday, but.
Yeah, I don't think, obviously none of them are NFL starters, but I think we could see some of them called up to a roster, practice squad, definitely. Backup, very possible. I think the best of the best in the NFL are backup or like low starter on some teams of like non-skill positions, for example. Like I could see them calling up a big, defensive player or a lineman. I could see that easily.
Yeah. And the AAF, after that folded, they had quite a few guys that got signed by different teams. And I know, I'm not sure of all of them, but I know one of the bigger wide receivers in the AAF was one of the two final starting wide receivers for the Eagles at the end of the year because they had riddled with injuries. Yeah. But he was a guy in the AAF that I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but I think he was one of their better receivers stats-wise in the league. And I feel like he was with them most of the year, even before they were down to 2 at the end of the season. But
there's definitely gonna be XFL players getting calls to try out. Like come throw with the team, come look at our playbook a little bit. See how you fit on these routes or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'd 100% agree on that.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's just a really exciting league and an exciting time. And week 1, I think, emphasized that. But I think Ta'amu's a perfect fit for it. Like, I think he's like a textbook player the XFL looks for. Somebody that had a really good college career, was overlooked by the NFL, went undrafted, but is still really top caliber and young. Yeah. So they want to get something on tape to move up to the NFL. The XFL is a perfect opportunity. They're playing hard because, 1, they're getting paid, and 2, it could pave a way to a bigger future for them. Like, this is exactly the niche the league has to exist in, and I think Ta'amu is one of the perfect people to exemplify that.
Yeah, because, like you said, he went undrafted. We're talking the draft that just happened. Yeah. Like, just the most recent draft. That's the one he was in. He got picked up by the Texans for literally 20 days or so. Yeah. He played a couple of preseason games. I have his stats there. He threw 12 passes. Yeah. In the NFL, he threw 12 passes. Yeah. And in preseason NFL. Yeah, and it's like he didn't really get a shot, Like he's on there. He did a couple things, but like what is that? Like 4 or 5 drives.
Right. Also, have you heard of Deshaun Watson? You think he was going to compete for Deshaun Watson's job?
And yeah, so obviously, and he was released the day after the last preseason game.
Yeah. So, you have to make cuts. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, he's the type of player that I personally would like to see more in this league. It's the guy that's overlooked, fringe NFL player, at least at the moment. And it's like
from a highly competitive position in the NFL too. Right. I think that's another thing that's like, there's only 32 starters for it. In the NFL.
It's not like there's like linebackers where it's like, oh, you could just shift to this.
There's multiple wide receivers. There's multiple running backs.
We already have a middle linebacker, but you want to play right line? Yeah. Like you want to play left line? Yeah. Oh, do you want to shift to defensive end? It's like it's a quarterback.
For the record, Eric Flowers still has a job in the NFL.
So it's just one of those things where it's like if you're a quarterback, you're usually not shifting to something else.
Right. You got to be cream of the crop.
Unless you're Taysom Hill somehow and just doing everything on an offense for the Saints as, like, you just don't need him to, but discussion for another day.
Cool. Anything else you want to say on Ta'amu?
That's about all I got on him.
Side note, I wanted to mention this earlier. I hadn't realized it till this morning, and I don't know if you've thought about this, but the group of people that we've been watching the XFL with, which again are about 8 people pretty constantly, every single one of them likes a different NFL team. but we're all unified by the BattleHawks. I guess the only exception is my fiance is also a Giants fan, but that's only because I introduced her to football. So, that's 1.5 Giants fans. Yeah. Not that she's not a true fan. It's just that she didn't really have the option,
I actually didn't realize that at all.
Yeah. You're the Colts. I'm the Giants. We have a Steelers friend. We have a Bills friend. Yeah. We have a Minnesota Vikings diehard. We have an Eagles buddy. And, those are the people that have been at every game. And then we have another friend that will probably claim to be an Eagles fan, but doesn't really watch the NFL.
Right. He definitely is an Eagles fan, but he doesn't watch a lot.
Yeah, he's an Eagles fan in quotes because he's a Flyers fan.
Right. Right.
But I think that's so interesting. Everybody came together and agreed on this one team, like the BattleHawks, for various reasons, and everybody has gotten the same thing back from it. Like, we're all used to different styles of play because we follow a completely different team every Sunday, and it's still been as exciting. And granted, things are more exciting when you're doing them as a group, like when you have something to bond over. Like, for example, how people watch Walking Dead for so long, even though it's awful.
Disagree.
But I think the BattleHawks, it's cool that it's filled that niche for people, and I'm hoping that that's what is happening with the XFL across cities, like in every state, because there are so few teams. It gives people a lot to rally around, and the league is so exciting. It's offering a different style of play that you're not seeing on Sundays, with the NFL.
Yeah, I'd agree. I honestly, until you just said, I didn't realize that.
I realized it
all
this
of us
morning.
had different NFL teams. We also, the funny thing is like we don't, other than you and I and our diehard Vikings fan, like we don't watch a lot of NFL with everybody else. So like the BattleHawks was like a bonding thing in a way where we're just like, yeah, you coming over to watch the game? And it's like, oh, absolutely. And
yeah, but I'm hooked.
Yeah, no, I'm really into it.
And let me just say that the timings for the games are so convenient. Like 1 and 5 or 6 as the two games, and they're only 3 hours. Commercials are like I can do it and then come home and do homework or like whatever I need to do. I don't feel like my Sunday is gone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like with the NFL, like when I sit down to watch football, I had to watch 100 different games because I have my fantasy football going, and that is my day. Like my day is NFL football. And while I love it, it's also like I want my Sunday.
Your Sunday's shot. I think for me, like the Sundays are like, oh, I'll tune into the 1 o'clock games. Is there any 4 o'clock game that like sounds cool? And then it's like, do I even care about the 8 o'clock game? Yeah. If I don't, then the rest of the night's mine, and it's like I'm doing whatever.
Yeah. XFL week 1, I watched every game, and I had a blast. But also, like, one of the games, I was doing homework. I just had it on the other screen, and it didn't seem like an inconvenience. Like, I didn't have to go out of my way to switch through 4 different games that are happening at the same time.
Right.
To see how my fantasy team's doing. But then, like, last week, for week 2, I missed the Saturday games because I was busy. But, like, I got the updates from you, and it's all on YouTube. Like, anything I miss. Like, the NFL's takedown, but the XFL is like, I guess we're not organized enough for this yet,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they just post some of it.
They post highlights, but they are very, very loose with removing entire games from YouTube.
It's not as quick as the NFL is.
In fact, I watched week 1. I rewatched week 1 at work today and sent you the link, and the link was still up when you went to watch it.
Yeah, and then I watched it probably about like 3 hours before we did.
And in case you didn't know, week 1 happened last week. Like, they still haven't taken down that video. Yeah, so
10 days ago.
Yeah. And you know what? I do think that's great because there's also nowhere that they're re-uploaded to my knowledge. Does Fox or ABC or anybody post?
I mean, they don't post it.
Well, I mean, like on their streaming service.
Yeah, ESPN, like they have like the ones that they broadcast you can rewatch. Okay. I'm not 100% sure on Fox's, but yeah.
It's just an accessible league to everyone. That is my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, all this discussion about everything but the game.
Yes.
Let's talk about week 1. The St. Louis BattleHawks at the Oh, I almost said Houston. The Dallas Renegades. I'm already
week
thinking
one,
about week
Stone.
2.
Week 1. I know it was a good game, but week 1.
Okay, so let's break it down. I have written some notes about the game here, but I don't know if there's anything in particular you want to say, but I do just want to get to what you said earlier, which was that not a lot of things happened in this game. It was kind of slow.
There wasn't much. The first time we watched it, it didn't seem like that because of how into it we were.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, rewatching it, I was like, a lot didn't really happen in this one. It was still a good game. It was still a close game too. Like there was some games this past weekend that it's like, yeah, they were close, and again, nothing was really happening. Yeah. So like, not being into like one of the teams, I was like, nothing's really going on here. But yeah, I mean, it was still a pretty decently played game. It ended the week 1, which I thought was the Saturday games were both really good. Yeah. The first one there on Sunday wasn't great, and then this one.
Oh yeah, the Vipers.
Yeah, it's the Vipers and the Guardians, I believe, and then this one also wasn't that great, but at least it was. I mean, it was a close game. It was a close game the entire time.
Well, let me again put an asterisk on this. It was not great for the scoreboard. Right. I still thought it was a pretty exciting game, but a lot of it was played on defense, or a really good defense against a good offense, like kind of held. So according to the scoreboard, I don't think it was a super exciting game. But I rewatched it again today, and I was having a lot of fun watching it. We should say that there are 2 entire quarters that go scoreless. The first quarter and the third quarter, I believe, go entirely scoreless.
There was a field goal in the third.
In the third?
Yeah.
Did it just happen before the end?
6 minutes left.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, sorry. I had misunderstood that there were 2 scoreless quarters.
There's one scoreless quarter.
That's how forgettable the third quarter was.
Yes. There was no BattleHawk action. That's probably why.
So this might be personal to our group of friends, but it is worth stating that easily my favorite player on the team so far is our punter, King.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, my favorite player. The way he conducts himself, his swagger is so much fun. He's got one hell of a boot. Like, he's so much fun to watch, if you ask me, and spend some time in the NFL. But the reason I bring him up particularly is I wrote this note down because I thought you would appreciate it especially. King's first punt, only 30 yards.
Yeah, so that was one thing is I was after the game, I was toying around with so that kind of leads into my breaking news merch update.
Oh, good.
Is that the breaking news of the merch update is that I have finally bought some merch. But
you got through the wall.
I got through the wall. But it's so one of the jokes, or I guess it wasn't a joke, but when we were looking at different merch to buy and stuff, I had sent one of our friends a text and was like, yeah, I for like 15 seconds I was toying around with just getting a custom jersey because there was like nothing else to buy. Yeah. And then I was like, I decided not to. And he like responded with, if you're going to get a custom jersey, because that was the one thing I said is like, for some reason we can't create ta'amus because like they don't allow apostrophes or whatever. And he was like, honestly, if you're going to get a jersey, he's like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it should probably be of our punter because he's a King. And like, that was the thing is like all of us going into week 2, all of us were like, we just want to see King. And then like, I was like, but he's our punter. We don't actually want to see him.
We never want to see him, but he's our favorite player. We never want to see.
Right. But I mean, it helps. He's really good too. When he was in the NFL, obviously my boy, Pat McAfee was the best punter in the league. Mm-hmm. But this guy was a very close second.
He said he knew him since he was a teenager, Pat.
Yeah. I guess they've known each other for quite a while, and they both like to kick balls very far. He played for Oakland for quite a few years, and then I think he ended up in like Denver for a year, and then dropped out of the league. Yeah. So then like after I'd picked the BattleHawks, I was going through like the rosters, and I was like, oh shoot! I was like, he's like the only guy I know on the like. There's a couple names that I recognize, but I was like, this is the one guy that I was like, I actually know who this dude is. And that's when I was like, wait, he's not on an NFL team anymore. I was like, I thought he bounced. Like I still thought he was just bouncing around at different teams or whatever. But
yeah, sorry to throw another tangent in here, but we were getting together for week 1. We all dressed in blue to cheer on the BattleHawks.
Except for me.
But nobody knew how dedicated we would be to the league. So I had said when I got there, if they win this game, like I'm buying a shirt for sure. Like I'm bought into it. And halfway through the game, everything was sold out because they were doing kind of well. They had that comeback. And we were like, oh, this might happen. So everyone on their phones started looking at merch, and it was all sold out because everyone was like, yeah, I'll get a shirt too. Like, this is really exciting.
Yeah, it was shortly after, and I recall the moment. It was shortly after that run by Tom, who we were talking about, where he got down to like the 8, and it was like, oh, shoot, they're about to score a touchdown here. And like I started looking, and I know one of our other friends was like, saw me looking, and was like, oh, what else on there? And she started looking, and they scored a touchdown, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, yeah, let's get this shirt. Like the game there was like 12 minutes left still, and we were just like, yep, like getting merch. But then all of us ended up not being able to because all the stuff we wanted at that moment was sold out. So
yeah, I think and so the first quarter is pretty uneventful as far as the scoreboard goes, but I do think we see a lot of really good defense, especially Robinson. They concentrate on a lot, but they picked up his mic at one point, and he's calling out defense. Like, I forget what exactly he said in the one time where they were really focusing in on his mic, but something like he picked up it was a sweep almost immediately, and he zeroed in on it and got him for a loss of yards. And Robinson was looking really good in the first quarter. Like, our defense was definitely the showcase, and especially because at the end, our first quarter ended with us fumbling it. So when we're finally getting a drive going, like, you know.
Yeah, Robinson's story is actually interesting because he was like, I recognized his name when I saw the roster list, but I didn't know why, like who he was or why I recognized the name. And then after I looked him up, that's when I was like, oh yeah, that's how he was actually. So he was played at West Virginia for a few years. And then when the XFL started, I think he was a sophomore or junior. I think he still needed to play like one more year in college to be draft eligible for the NFL. And then he was like, screw that, I'm gonna go join the XFL. So like the reason he was like I recognized his name is because he was the first guy that was like, well, instead of playing in college, yeah, he's like, I'm gonna go and get a paycheck, help out my family, and continue to play. And then I think his plans to go to the NFL next year.
That is crazy to me because I was looking at him in the first quarter thinking like, this guy's got experience. He's picking up on these plays so easily. Like, to me, he looked like, you know, he had already had some legitimate experience. Yeah. I'm shocked to hear that he hasn't even done a senior year.
Right.
Because he was looking really good in that first quarter.
I think that was another reason why it was like so shocking in its own right, is because it wasn't like he was just like some guy was like, I don't feel like doing college anymore. I'm going to go play in the XFL. Like, he was supposed to be, or at least was touted as being like one of the better, I think he's cornerback, one of the better cornerbacks in college, and was going to be a decent draft pick. And then he was just like, you know, I don't want to play and not get paid anymore. So that's why he went there.
He still gets his tape. He still gets paid. And you know what? Based just on that first quarter alone, he looks like he earned it.
Yeah.
You know, the first quarter was a lot of defense on both sides. I mean, the BattleHawks offense was executing. They had good runs in the first quarter. They had, you know, a lot of good passes, but they just were not getting it done. There were some, though. We had 3 and outs where we just took the field, and it was an immediate 3 and out.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. Like,
yeah, you said they had a lot of like good run. Like, they did their first like drive or two, they were racking up some good running yards, and then the defense started to kind of zero in on it, and then the running backs weren't doing anything for a while. And Tom, who was starting to kind of get into the passing game a little more, but it just took a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they were able to finally break through in the second. I mean, there was a minute and a half left, but they finally got on the board.
Yeah. And I am looking through some of my notes for the first half. One thing I also did note is that every time they're doing the Wildcat snaps, Fitzgerald is the one in formation.
Yeah, I'm honestly not too sure what that's about.
Yeah, neither am I, because if you look at him, I mean, what Ta'amu had proved so far in the game already is that he can be really mobile. When they did a designed quarterback run play, he got well over 10 yards.
Right.
So it's weird for the Wildcat snap. Like, okay, we're just signaling to the other team that this is about to be Wildcat because Fitzgerald took the field. You know?
I think it's just to give a different look.
Yeah.
Honestly, but if you don't throw it at all with him, then it's like, okay, well, they know it's a run.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Unless they're just in it for the long haul. Like, okay, here comes another one. And then he bombs it.
Playoff round, semifinals. It's like, guys, it's a run. They're going to do 60-yard touchdown
They're
pass.
doing it all year, right? 2 snaps every game, wild card snap going to Fitzgerald. But when it comes to the playoff push, we're going to bring him in, and he's just going to bomb it downfield.
I feel like that's not the move, but it could be. I don't know.
We don't know. The XFL's, it's the Wild West in football right now.
What do I know?
What I also did note in my notes for the first half is that Pat McAfee was the sideline reporter for this game, and he did say that it is harder to punt an XFL ball because it is designed to be thinner so that the throws are a little easier, but as a result, it's harder to find the sweet spot when you kick it.
Yeah, and he was saying that that's probably the reason why, like, King shanked a few to start.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas's punter didn't hit it great the first times he punted.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just something they'll start getting used to as things go on.
Yeah. And I have 2 other notes here on the defensive front. For the most part, for what I was observing, and I wasn't taking notes every single snap. I was at work, so I was doing work. But for the most part, the BattleHawks run defense was pretty excellent in the first half. Most all of the runs were held to about 5 yards or less. Now, the ones that really broke out, and they had, Dallas got some big runs, but for the most part, a lot of those runs were held. It was really their secondary that had an issue. And then alongside of that, not excellent tackling. And I know the reason for that is probably because all the scrimmages were not tackle.
Yeah.
And they didn't start tackling until like just before this game.
Yeah, that's one thing they were doing during the preseason was that they decided to limit as many hits as possible.
Yeah.
So, can you attribute to that? I suppose so.
Yeah, but then we get to week 2, and bad tackling is a theme.
Yes.
But definitely the seeds of bad tackling were, in fact, planted early in the first half of this game.
Right. It led us to coin the term that our defense is bend, don't break.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent term. Our friend, he kept kind of sarcastically yelling bend, don't break about our defense, but I don't know a way that describes it better.
I said it once, and then he started screaming it every time.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, bend, don't break.
I think that is an excellent way to define it, though, because when it counts, like when they're in the red zone, or even when they're in goal, really not even the red zone, but when they're in goal, they don't get it. Like the other team does not get the points. They're really holding them at the goal line. But every time between like goal and the opponent's end zone, like it seems like bad tackling, not an excellent secondary. I don't think our passing defense in week 1 really was off to a good start. And like we said, the tackling was just really not excellent. But rewatching the first game, in the first half at least, I really liked the way the run defense was looking. And that is by someone very amateur watching from the sofa, but I was really happy with that. I don't know what your thoughts were.
I mean, no, they if you look at the stats too, they did pretty. I mean, they only gave up 58 total rushing yards the entire game, which is pretty good.
Yeah. But what they stopped in the running game, they gave up in penalties anyway.
Right. Like you look at it and you see 58 rushing yards, which is, I mean, it's not bad. they also only had 12 attempts. So it like averages almost 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, most of the time they were holding them, but then when they broke out big.
Right.
But yeah, penalties were a big theme
in
the first game.
I have in my notes, and I think I might have missed one, but the BattleHawks have 3 false starts before half, and that's just false starts.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true off the top of my head, but they had quite a few of them.
Yeah, and then there was that fight on the sideline that resulted in an injury.
Yep.
That was a big penalty. And I believe there was a pass interference, but I don't remember if that was in the first half or the second half.
Not sure.
I might have it in my notes here. What I also have, sorry, I asked you for your thoughts, and I've steamrolled you. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
What about the penalty? They did have 78 penalty yards compared to 19 from the Renegades.
For the entire game?
The entire game.
Yeah. And a lot of that was the first half.
Yeah.
It from what I was seeing.
Yeah, it probably was.
I have no way of verifying that.
Yeah, I don't have it broken down that way, but
yeah.
But yeah, that it did seem like that. That was a theme also in the coming week, in week 2, but it always seemed like we were having unfortunate timed penalties.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about week 2. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't you worry. We'll talk about week 2. I was gonna say like this first week might be a little longer, just because, or this first episode might be a little longer, just because it, like that intro we did. But I feel like I've got a lot more to say about week 2's game than I do about week 1. So.
Absolutely. Week 1, if I had to give you the elevator pitch right now, like solid looking team, like just 3 words to. Just solid looking team.
It was one of those where like I had no expectations going in this game. I knew some of the couple of the running backs I knew of, and some of the players in general, but it was like that straight old like, wow, this team could really suck. I have no idea. Let me see how it goes. And after watching the first game, like even if they would have lost that game, I still would have came away with like, okay, they were, they looked pretty decent. Like. You get some of the offensive things figured out, you get some of the penalties figured out, and all of a sudden your team, you got a good looking team there. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely a solid team. At this moment though, like I had watched Houston's game week 1.
First half or week 1 when you say at this moment?
Oh, after week 1.
Okay.
I'd watched Houston's game in week 1, and like they looked like they were clicking on all cylinders. Mm-hmm. So I knew that they were going to play Houston week 2, and I was like, all right, might get steamrolled by them because they just look really good.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think we were as explosive as they were, and we also weren't clicking on all cylinders like Houston was either. So it's one of those where like. If I was like, if I saw that we were going to play in week 6, I'd be like, okay, we'd probably be good to go by then.
Yeah.
Whereas like week 2, I was like, we might get murdered in this game coming up. But
looking at our tackling, looking at our secondary, I'm not confident.
Right.
Yeah. So I do have a few more notes here for the first half. I wrote down Ta'amu's really accurate, rarely over or under throwing any ball. When I look at Ta'amu's performance specifically in this game, like the one word that comes to mind to me is safe. It seems like he only took the sure thing. I mean, what's his completion here? He threw a 20 out of 27, a 74% completion rate. All those throws look good, but all those throws seem safe to me. Like, it didn't seem like he was ever putting it up to see what happened. It was just like, it's like, and I don't like, just constantly comparing them to other quarterbacks, but it was very like Jimmy Garoppolo to me. Like, he's going to do the safe option. He's not going to take risks. But even the times he wasn't throwing, like, all his runs were pretty much sure things. The only time it wasn't was, when did it happen? They were going to take a big sack, and he rolled out of it, and then he fired it down the sideline to the tight end on the right side, Lucas.
Yeah.
And he dropped the ball, which was actually good because we didn't lose any yards that way. But I think that was one of the very few, like, cool under pressure moments, but still under pressure moments for him. Everything else seemed pretty safe.
Yeah, I agree. He definitely seemed that way. I mean, like you had said earlier with was he 20? Yeah, 20 of 27. Even after week 2, I believe I'd seen the stat that he's leading the entire league in completion percentage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just shows you he's not gunslinging it and throwing it all over the place in different directions into like triple coverage or anything like that. But week 2, different, slightly different. But week 1, he definitely seemed a little more safe, a little more precautious than anything.
Yeah, I mean, and we say safe. Obviously, there's not a sure thing on every play, you know? Like, there's a lot of skill, and maybe his effortlessness makes it look like it is safe. But, I mean, the numbers don't show him taking any risks. He's not really putting it up. There's no jump balls coming from him. It's all accurate. It's all on the route. And it all seems like it's more of a sure thing than not.
Yeah, it's not one of those where, like in the NFL, Jameis Winston drops back to pass, and you're not sure where the heck it's going and who's it even going to. Like anytime he drops back to pass, I feel like he feels like he's in control, you know. And every time he throws it, it's not like, where's this going? Yeah. It's usually towards somebody on his own team, you know.
And I think that also speaks to the trust the receivers have for him. It seemed to me like he had good chemistry with those receivers. And I think it goes back to him being cool under pressure, him being like, you know, like a level-headed, like constant in the offense. Even that play I was just talking about where he dropped back a lot and they were about to take a sack, he adapted to that situation so quickly. Like, he was up, he knew his options before he was even like fully upright. He knew he was going to hit Lucas on the right side. I never saw him falter, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the reason the receivers were doing so well and it seemed so safe is because there was a lot of trust. You know, that's a lot of assumption from me watching from a sofa, but it did feel that way.
Yeah, it seemed like they had a better connection than some of the other quarterback receiver combinations that I had seen in week 1.
And the thing I noticed about week 1, at least, there didn't seem to be a standout receiver, in my opinion. Pearsonell was really good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he had a good week.
I wouldn't say that he was the star. To me, I didn't think there was a star wide receiver. I think the ball was spread around pretty evenly, and everybody did the best with the plays they were given. But I wouldn't say, like, this guy was the MVP receiver, you know?
Well, you had 10 different people in the entire game that were targeted for a pass.
Oh, yeah. I'm seeing that. Mm-hmm.
And 8 of them had catches.
You know, and as I'm looking at it, Pearsonell only got 4 receptions.
Yeah, Washington had 5. He led the team with 5.
I like Washington, man. I think that kid is good. He's nimble. He's a lot of fun to watch. And I think when he gets it, he has a lot of, like, yards after carry. Yeah. And that's, again, I'm not looking at hard facts on that. I'm feeling a lot of week 2. Week 2 more than week 1.
I just rewatched week 1, and week 2 is still more in my head than week 1 was.
Yeah, I watched it today, and I'm like, but Washington with those yards after carry, after not catch, carry
yards after catch.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yak.
And then so Keith Ford, 16-yard run with 1:20 left on the clock in the second quarter, our very first touchdown from the BattleHawks, and that is a good-looking run. You know, he commanded that sideline the whole way down. And I swear we see this same play in week 2, don't we?
I think something very similar, at least. Yeah.
I think, if memory serves correct, sorry, we keep talking about week 2, but it's just because it was a big game.
It's hard to do this after we had just watched week 2. But week 2 was 2 days ago.
Yeah, I think they repeat this play with Keith Ford running along the sidelines for like close to the 16-yard and then do the same thing for the extra point, I want to say. But after this touchdown starts our streak of the BattleHawks never, ever being able to convert any of the extra points ever.
Yes,
we end up going for 2, and it is, I believe, a dropped catch this time. I forgot to write down what exactly happened. But this is going to be a trend for BattleHawks fans. It's like we can convert on third down, but we can't convert when there's points on the line.
Yeah, I realized it after like the second touchdown in week 2's game, and I threw it out there, and then when we scored again in week 2, I was like, man, they're not going to get this again, are they? And then, yep, they didn't get it again. And it's unfortunately a trend.
Yeah.
But, those are just meant to be broken. So,
all right. So, BattleHawks fail to get that 2-point conversion. Dallas brings it back. I have written bad tackling in BattleHawks secondary, resulting in Dallas tying it up, going into halftime with a field goal, 6-6 going into the locker room.
I'm not entirely sure which specific drive you might be talking about because it happened a lot. So,
yeah, that's the thing. With both teams, there were some drives that were kept alive for so long, and their offenses looked excellent. And there were some drives where they take the field, go immediately 3 and out, and we're back to the other side. It's like they were so, I don't want to say they were hot and cold because defense had a lot to do with it, but it seemed so hot and cold in this game. Yeah. Like watching it, I was confident in the BattleHawks, complete false confidence because I had no idea what to expect. I was confident in the BattleHawks, but it really could have gone either way. I thought it was a really exciting game for that reason. Like I was always hanging on.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like, and you could say this is like, well, yeah, either they move the ball or they don't. But it seemed like either the drives, absolutely nothing was happening, or when they were moving it, it just seemed like very poor defense was being played. Yeah. And in the secondary.
The secondary was very good.
Yeah, run defense was still pretty solid, but the secondary, and it wasn't necessarily defending passes, it was just more of like when guys were catching it, it just seemed like they were able to all of a sudden then get another 10, 15 yards out of it. And it's like, well, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. So the third quarter, I don't really have much happening until Dallas, and I didn't write down when the drive started, but it ended with about 8 minutes left in the third quarter. They had a big drive, and they had multiple plays in that drive where they were getting over 20 yards. This is one of their few very big runs. And what did you say? They held them to 68 yards this game, the defense? I can't remember. Well, yeah. We'll
rushing, you prefer rushing?
Yes.
Yeah, 58.
Sorry. 58. And I believe that this play, one of the plays in this drive, accounted for 20 of those rushing yards.
I believe I just saw that.
Yeah. So and this was a big, big drive for Dallas. But again, at the end of it, they were stopped by the defense. They get down to about the 5-yard line, and the defense, bend don't break, is able to stop them, and they ultimately end this without a touchdown, which is really impressive. It's like when it really counts, the BattleHawks defense is there. But every time in between, you don't know who's showing up.
Right, and that's the interesting stat that I had is in the red zone, Dallas was 0 for 2, meaning when they got inside the 20-yard line, they got inside twice, and they didn't score both those times. Yeah. So bend don't break literally comes like to fruition right there. There seemed like there was a lot of drives where they were moving the ball and they just either ended up not scoring or only kicking field goals. Yeah. So
at the end of this drive, Pat McAfee's also talking about an early interview with Coach Hayes that he had, and there was a quote here that I really liked and I think perfectly embodies what we've been talking about so far. Coach Hayes says, "Never let the players see you panic," which I think exemplifies one, how well like that bend don't break fits in. That has to be a part of it. But then his philosophy alongside Ta'amo's philosophy, I think I think if there's something that perfectly exemplifies the BattleHawks, it's that. Never let them see you panic. Yeah. Especially because physically he has Manning face. Right. And I don't know that he knows how to panic.
Which is one thing you and some of the other guys we're watching with kept harping on, was that he lacked any show of emotion. Like at one point at halftime, I think it was when they're coming out of the locker room, I want to say. I think McAfee had talked to him and was like, what do you got to do better? And he's just like, I just got to settle down. I just got to settle down. There's things I got to work on still. And like everybody started laughing because it's like the narrative you guys were already pursuing was that this man doesn't know what is happening. So then when they come out of halftime and he's just like, there's things I got to work on here. I understand it's comical that like he says that in that situation. But again, this man, it was his first head coaching game ever, professionally or collegiately. So like, obviously, he's been in the game for a while, but he's never been a head coach, so he doesn't know quite the ins and outs of what he's doing yet.
That I do. Now that you said that, I did remember that. But you know what it reminds me of? Did you watch Parks and Rec? Yeah. April, the intern, who has like a pretty.
Oh right.
In the early season, she's got a pretty like just goth, like not talk a lot personality. But there's this one bit where they're interviewing her, and she's like, my family's Puerto Rican. That's why I have such a loud personality. Yeah. And that's what I thought of immediately. Just like so tone deaf to it, but at the same time in the perfect way. Yeah. But yeah, he has, I do call it Eli face, to the point where a lot of times when it flashes back to him, he looks confused. Well, I know that's not the emotion he's trying to project.
Yeah, I think he's just playing it straight face, whether intentional or unintentional. And his glasses don't necessarily help, just because the way they sit on his face just makes him look like he's just not a clue in the world or not a care. I'm not really sure which. Yeah. But as T.O. once said, that's my head coach.
I think that was his exact quote. Yeah.
Exact quote.
All right,
don't fact check any of this podcast.
I've written here after that big Dallas drive when they get it back, this is where the bad snap happens. And then Ta'amu immediately scrambles, reacts quickly, and luckily it was an incompletion. Because had they completed it, they would have lost about a yard.
I think it was.
Well, they were, but Lucas was standing about a yard behind the line of scrimmage, if not right at it.
He also evaded a cameraman during that sequence.
Yeah, and Troy Aikman.
There was well, that was earlier. There was a cameraman standing back that had to run out of the way because the snap was that bad.
Sorry, yeah, you're completely right. And then I think from that point, the cameraman only ever ran on between plays.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was before or after it, but at one point, Pat McAfee was standing on the field, and they kept telling him to get off, and he's like, I don't know if he's like, I keep being told to be more aggressive. But now I'm being told to get off the field, and I don't know what to
do. Seattle immediately goes 3 and out here. That's another one of those get on the field, get off the field. And you know what I will say? For all these times that it's pretty immediate 3 and out, the defense doesn't really look that winded. Like, the run defense is still there. They're still, like, stopping all the runs that I see. But here's the big one. This is, if you weren't a fan of King before, this is the play that's going to make you love him. He swaggers out on the field, having some okay punts this game, but he absolutely boots it for 63 yards at the end zone. I would venture a half yard before the end zone, but for safety's sake, we'll say 1. The perfect punt, to put it in, like, that's the best way to describe it, is the perfect punt for 63 yards, lands at the half yard line. Our special teams player touches it and takes it in the end zone. I was happy about that at the time because I was convinced that Dallas did touch the ball and that was going to be a touchdown. Right. I was wrong. He was wrong for the same reason. It really sucks to have such a perfect punt squandered there.
Yeah, I didn't think it touched him at all, and I remember you jumping up and like cheering about it. I was like, why are you cheering? We just knocked the ball into the end zone. He touched it. Yeah. It's like it's a touchback now. But
yeah, luckily, that's an immediate Dallas 3 and out from that point. Luckily, because really, imagine the field position we could have gotten if it was at the 1. But yeah, I fell for it too. He was in the game and fell for it, so I don't feel so bad. But dude, how much would it have sucked to be interviewed at that time? Pat was respectful, I think.
Right. He did ask him, and like even Pat then once he told him his answer, even Pat was like, yeah, okay, I can't blame him on that. Because like he was like, oh, I thought I touched it. Thought I was getting a touchdown. And Pat's like, yeah, folks, he thought he was getting a touchdown. Like,
but
I get
Pat
it.
Losing his mind the second he touched it, he's like, you ruined a perfect.
What are you doing? Yeah, he's like, look at this, but what are you doing? That was how that quickly that changed.
Dallas goes 3-and-out on the kick to us. On the punt to us, fumbled, but luckily we recover it right before the fumble. Now I have this written here. I'm not sure why. 1 minute 30 left in the third. Chuck Long, our offensive coordinator, finally moves his mic a respectable distance away from his mouth. Now, hopefully our audio quality on my mic is not awful, so I look like a jerk.
So we sound like it, yeah.
Because this is not, I will say that this is not the regular setup for the mic that I'm using. But yes, it took into 1 minute 30 left on the clock in the third quarter for him to finally move his mic to a place that wasn't eating it.
I didn't make note of that, but I do know what you're talking about.
Third quarter ends. I had said no score, but you're saying there
was a field goal.
A field goal.
Yeah, we had talked about that drive. They had that big Dallas had that big like 20-yard run,
and then we stopped them at the 5.
Yeah.
I don't know why I completely forgot about that. That was such a huge deal for our defense, but I guess I was just so concentrating on the defense, that didn't even register in my mind. Okay, so the fourth quarter starts with Ta'amu, a designed quarterback run for 35 yards. I mean, one hell of a run for a quarterback to make. But this is the one that you had referenced earlier where he ran into his safety, just took one quick cut, and it was open field right in front.
Yeah.
Not his safety.
Yeah, ran into his center. Yeah. And then took a Le'Veon Bell hop step to the right and then just took off.
Yeah.
And there was nobody in the vicinity.
Yeah, and there's nothing that drives me crazier when I'm watching these games and there's awful ball security. Ta'amu knows what he's doing. Like, he secures the ball. Like, I'm never nervous when he starts running with it, which I don't always think is the case, but that was just worth noting. Drive ends with a 9-yard pass to Russell for a touchdown, and I put in parentheses, laser throw. I think this is insanely accurate. I think it shows how good Ta'amu actually is, because he was in coverage. He was on the other side of a guy, and he put it just at the right height for him to catch it in the back of the end zone. And like this touchdown looked really good, and I feel like not enough people talk about it because it was only a 9-yard touchdown.
Right.
It's pretty unimpressive on paper.
Yeah, it was a laser to the back of the end zone and through a little bit of traffic. It was a nice catch.
Yeah, minor. There was a jam, but it was not. It's not going to set you back any. But yeah, guess what happens? They try for 1 point. How do you think that ends?
They didn't get it.
Yeah, that's a failure. Again, we are never going to get any conversions.
Never.
Yeah.
Mark that down.
In this game, and
ever.
We'll talk about week 2
to the end of time.
Yeah. Again, a lot of nothing happening. We get another good drive going on, and Pearson L gets a 39 yards of running after the catch. So it totals to be a 41-yard catch, but 39 yards after the catch. He's cutting. He was looking really good. That's with about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. When we have a lead, but we want to hang on to it, I think that was a big momentum shift for us too, because a 41-yard play at that time, and I can't remember what down it was, but I don't think it wasn't do or die at that time. Like we were just going through the motions. Like I think that ties into what we were saying before, where it's like the quarterbacks and the receivers trust each other. It seems like there's real camaraderie there.
Yeah, it was a second and 8 is what I got here.
Okay, great.
Then it's 41 yards.
So, I think that's the highlight reel for week 1. That one makes it without a doubt.
It was a nice play. Yeah, I do remember that one.
And that was all on the receiver, Pearson L. Yeah. He made that play his own. I say here, great fake runs by Ta'amu during the drive. Normally, I don't care much about that, but a lot of times when they fake runs or throws, a lot of times the quarterback's like, yeah, okay, we can tell you're faking, you know? But Ta'amu does a great job of selling it every time. He'll run out a few yards to keep people on his case. Like, he commits to the fake so well that when he actually is the one running, they're going after, well, I mean, there's a few different running backs. I also see the running backs position, like everybody's getting a lot of carries too. It doesn't seem like Jones, I think, seemed to be the main one in this game. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that
he's technically their starting running back. He got the most carries
without a doubt, 21 attempts.
Yeah, he got the most carries in week 1. I think he got the most carries in week 2 by like a carry. But yeah, he's their starter. And he'll probably get the bulk of the running game, other than Tom when he takes off. Yeah. But that's what I like. I do agree with that. That's what I like is he does do a pretty good job of, like you said, there's a lot of quarterbacks, usually the less mobile ones, that just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna hand it off and then like jog 2 feet and fake the run, you know, where he does a pretty good job of at least running to the other side of wherever.
Sometimes
wherever
I swear I saw him looking for a hole.
That might be true.
This could be my mind really exaggerating it, but I feel he commits at the right level. He's not risking injury, but at the same time, he is benefiting the play.
Yeah, and I like that. It was also something, again, week 2, Philip Walker did it against us pretty well. He also does it similarly, which it adds that level of difficulty to stop it when you at least, it's like, okay, well, did the running back have it? Does the quarterback have it? And especially when you got in this game in particular, everybody was running it pretty well for us. So it's like if Tamu was the only one getting holes, making holes and going with it, then it's like, okay, well, we're going to just assume he's getting it, or we're going to bank on him and then we'll just stop the other guy. Yeah. Where we were running the ball pretty well for most of the game, and I just think it made it that much harder to kind of stop those runs.
Yeah, and I think a testament to how well those were working, I'm looking at the stats here. Jones, our main running back, 21 attempts for 85 yards, averaging 4. That's pretty good. But then Ta'amu right behind him, 9 attempts of only, well, not only, it's a lot for a quarterback, but 9 attempts, he's getting 77 yards. I think that speaks to how well he was committing when he wasn't the one running, so that when he was, it really sold it. And obviously that's not the only reason. There was good coverage. Pockets were opening up for him. He was reading the field really well, but still 77 yards off 9 rushes, while your main running back is at 85 for 21 attempts.
Obviously, that big one, the 37-yarder.
Huge
adds on to that a lot. But
yeah,
if you take that away, he's still 8 attempts, 40 yards. So that's still 5 yards every time he's running the ball.
For a quarterback.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, I'm happy with the way he played. But yeah, it's a whole team effort. And I think it's also refreshing to see the XFL being taken so seriously by the players in it too. Like you were talking about Robinson coming right out of college. It's not just a stepping stone for him. This is a legitimate career opportunity, and everyone is playing at their best that they can to prove that this league is, it's serious. They're committed to it. Yeah. And I think this is, just committing to those fakes shows that to me as a slightly more than casual fan.
Yeah, I mean, this league's only going to go as far as the players want to take it, Exactly. So it's like, if you got guys that are just going to show up and grab a paycheck, that's one thing. But if you got guys that are also trying to get to, like, let's not kid ourselves. The NFL and the XFL aren't on the same level. No. But, like, if you got guys that are like, okay, this is my chance to prove that I can play professional football and try to get to the NFL, then that's what's going to make this league more successful when you got those types of guys that are doing that. Yeah. If you got guys that are just there to catch a paycheck, half-ass, not get hurt, like, that's how that's going to go. But if you got guys that want to play football, are passionate about playing football, like getting paid to play football, like that's This league, like I said, just gonna go as far as the players.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it too. Plus, there's the incentive that if you win a game, the team gets 100,000. Yeah. I mean, it's not the way it's split, but you split evenly. I think at least 2,500 per player.
I think it's something around there.
Yeah.
Which is not bad considering the average salary. I think I saw the stat was like 55,000 for the entire season. Yeah. So you win if you win 10 games. Yeah. There's an extra
250, let's say.
Yeah, if it's 2,500.
If it's split evenly.
Yeah. Yeah. You win 10 games. I mean, there's 25.
And that's an undefeated season. But if you win more than you lose,
right?
You're making up your salary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a good chunk of change. Obviously, you got guys like Landry Jones who I think he's getting like 500,000 or something. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that extra 2,500 a win isn't gonna help him that much, but it
could be percentage based,
right?
Too.
Yeah. And like I said, 55,000. That's the average. So, like you're talking about some guys that are getting well less than that. If you're talking about the highs, like 250 or 500, whatever it may be, and the average is 55, well then clearly people are getting paid a lot less than that to track that number down.
Exactly. It is cool. Yeah, seeing that you're right. The league is made by the players, 100%, and all these incentives add up to that. But all right, sorry. Back to this game. Almost done. Sacked for a huge loss, results in us going for a field goal. 5 minutes left in the fourth. We make it. We're ahead. Yep. This puts us at our score 15-9 because we were up 12-9 already.
So, funny thing about that sack was, just to add to your love of Hayes' lack of emotion, is when they came back from commercial, the announcer at the one point had said, like, Coach Jonathan Hayes not too happy with his quarterback, and then they cut to his talk.
I remember this live.
And he's like, Tom, who comes over and he's just like, you can't do that. Yeah. And he's like, and like Tom, who says something back to him, like, yeah, he's like, I did. And he's just like, yeah, just don't do it next time. And I was like, and then like that was it. Like he says, not too happy with him, and then the guy like says like 10 words to him. And it's like,
sorry. Okay, good.
Yeah. I was like, all right. That's
there
fine.
is one time I saw him get frustrated. I did not write down when this happened, but sometime in the fourth quarter, it seems as though our offense coordinator, Chuck Long, his microphone was no longer being fed into the players' helmets, but only the head coach. Right. So it was going through Long calling the play, down to Hayes, who was relaying it to all of the players. And at one point, Lucas, the tight end, came off onto the side. I think it was Lucas. Came off onto the sideline, tried to say something to coach, and Hayes yelled at him while his mic was still hot. That's the only time we saw him break it all. And he immediately snapped back to his Eli.
There was also a time when there was like string of false starts was happening. You didn't hear it, but you just heard Pat McAfee go, St. Louis coach just said a naughty word. that was the extent of it. I was like, so he does swear. Got it.
Yeah. So anyway, around this time, there's also Pat McAfee's commentary we hear from the sidelines. He was saying that in the XFL, you only need 1:20 left on the clock to kneel out and end the game, as long as the opponent has no timeouts left.
Right. With the new, their new comeback time rule.
Yeah, so it's less a surrender and more, they actually have to try a few drives if they want to make it happen. For this particular game, they didn't have an opportunity to kneel out. By the time Dallas had used their last timeout, we were on our second down. We tried one run play. It didn't work, and then we ended up kicking it off to them. Yep. Dallas fumbled that recovery with 33 seconds left, and it seems like for a moment that our amazing punter King had won us the game.
I think McAfee even said at one point, like, "Oh, punt's gonna end it, fellas," and then they said that Dallas had recovered it.
I feel like one of these games we deserve to win it because of King. like our favorite player we never want to see on the field.
Right. We'll do it.
It'll happen. But then with 15 seconds left on the clock, Dallas is trying to drive it down the field, and Will Hill intercepts it to end the game. And as a bonus, he gets to keep Dallas's football.
Yep.
He gets
picked
the
it off.
interception,
He gets
keeps the ball, ends up being the game-winning ball. I think that's like a really poetic way for the defense to end the first ever XFL game for the BattleHawks.
Yeah, it was like I said, solid. It was a solid game. That because it was close, because I mean it was never more than a 1-score game. The largest lead was what it finished at 6.
Yeah.
So, like it was a good solid game. I mean, like you said, Dallas even had a chance to come back with 45 seconds left or so. So,
and they looked like they were going to start moving too. If Hill hadn't intercepted it, it might have been a big play down at the red zone.
yeah, it was first down. It was first down at their own 30.
Yeah. I mean, the drives before it, like Dallas was really getting to move the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good game though. That was the start. That was the start of it.
I was a fan of this game. Rewatching it, it was really exciting because, I knew we were going to do this. I was trying to pay a little bit more attention to individual player performance because the first time we were watching it, it was really just wrapped up in the moment. A lot of screaming. My voice was shot the next day. Like, it was fun trying to learn the player names, and it's a little fun to laugh at Coach Hayes when he has a blank expression every time it flashes to him on the... But it was a lot of fun to rewatch. This game was a lot of defense. Dallas, it got exciting because they were coming back and they were moving the ball in a lot of big ways. But then St. Louis was coming back and answering. It was a pretty exciting game. If you had watched the other games before, I think this was a good end to it. But if you were trying to get somebody into the XFL, I would say maybe check out the Defenders game instead.
Should have watched the ones on Saturday.
I'm glad this was the end to it. And I'm glad I was a fan of this team. I think it really exemplifies how well the XFL can be played and how exciting it can be, especially when there's two evenly matched teams. It was not the most exciting game, but I had a lot of fun with it. I'm happy that this was the BattleHawks' first game because I think it really puts on display all their best talent and how they're already functioning as a team.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, like I said, it was a good cap to the end of the weekend, end of their first weekend. A good game came down to the end. That's all you really want.
And 5 of the 8 of us watching were now on the hook for a shirt. Right. And you know what? Everyone else wanted one. They just didn't make the promise that they would buy one. I will say, I was excited that you got through, but my B option shirt became available during week 2.
Yeah,
just the blue.
I bought the B option. I didn't. My A option is sold out, and I think will be.
Yeah, so. Same. I'm waiting on my A option merch, and you know what? If they keep winning, I'll keep buying.
I don't know if I'll keep buying, but
I'm just, you know what I mean. Got to get that King jersey. I'm just kidding. I really don't have any interest in any of the jerseys, but I feel like King deserves some love. Yeah, that was week 1, and I thought it was pretty exciting. Now, normally, this is the part where we talk about really current events in the XFL, but more news is going to be happening. We're going to record the week 2 podcast, so we'll get more into it then. It is worth noting quickly, though, we discussed it very briefly, one line earlier, but BattleHawks are playing at home for week 3, already a sold-out game. Yep. I think that's extremely exciting. I think it's great to capitalize on a market that does not have an NFL team, and I hope that continues to happen. And God, I hope we're good at home. I really, not that we were bad on the road, but if we were this good on the road,
you want to show up for those home fans.
Well, we're playing a not great team next week, right?
Yes.
The Dragons?
No, the Guardians, New York. They won their first week and then had issues week 2. So
what I do want to say, though, their jerseys last week, New York, pretty fire. Those gray and black ones.
Yeah, the gray ones.
And they were the away team. Yeah. Pretty fire.
Yeah, the gray ones aren't bad.
Yeah. Big fan of that. And their their ambiguous mascot.
Yes,
Or their
gargoyle, apparently.
a logo, not mascot. I am happy that we have not seen any mascots yet, actually. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of
Who are they
else.
for? We haven't seen cheerleaders.
Children.
Great. We haven't seen mascots. Excellent. Like, I'm pretty stoked about that. Yeah. So in place of our normal news segment, we already talked about him a little bit, but let's just round out Jonathan Hayes because he hasn't had a super long career. You were saying.
he's had a decently long career, just not many stops, not usual coaching stops that you would expect. You pull up a guy's coaching gigs and you see like 13 different positions. Yeah. Really, he played in the NFL for a few years. He was drafted in '85 by the Chiefs, and he played there from '85 to '93, and then he went to the Steelers from '94 to '96, and then from there is when he started his coaching career. A couple years later, he went to Oklahoma, and he was the tight ends and special teams coach for Oklahoma for a few years under Bob Stoops, who is noticeably the head coach of the Dallas Renegades. Yeah, so he was the tight end special teams coach under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma for a few years. They actually won a national championship in 2000, one of the years that he was there. And then at the end of the 2002 season, he ended up going to the Bengals to be their tight ends coach under Marvin Lewis, who had just started in 2003 as the head coach. And he was there in Cincinnati in the same position the entire time Marvin Lewis was there as the head coach. So from 2003 to 2018. And then he doesn't have anything listed last year. And then, of course, is
15 years on a coaching staff, not getting cut. And I'm sorry, when the Bengals, was he only tight end or was he still tight end in special teams?
Just has tight ends. Yeah, just has tight ends listed.
Wow.
So,
because normally, yeah, a position like that can get gutted pretty easily.
You would think he took something else over or moved up, moved down, but yep, just tight ends coach. That's why when, like, I didn't know it at the time, obviously, but when you look back on it and his halftime comments was just like, yeah, I just got to get better. Yeah. Like, yeah, clearly, like he hasn't even been an offensive coordinator, or a defensive coordinator. Yeah, so like you that's the usual like transition you see there. Yeah. So yeah, clearly for him, it's not. I wouldn't say he was in over his head by any means, because clearly I think he has the level of like calm, cool, and collective to do that type of position. But like it was also clear that it was like, well, this is the first time I'm in this role. Yeah. Don't really know what I'm getting myself into yet. We're gonna see how it goes. And yeah, I mean, he did really well. I did lie. There was one head coaching position he had, and that was in the 2018 East-West Shrine game, which is an all-star college football game that they play for the Shriners Hospital. Yeah. Well, but that was it. That was that's all. That's all.
How big an event is that?
I mean, it's essentially like an East-West college football game. It's like it's a semi-big event.
People were talking about him for a head coach then.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's just for that one game, his name was out there. Yes. He must have had some good qualities that people saw even before that. I mean, look, I don't mean to keep tying it back to it, but this is also preparing me for the situation that is currently happening with the Giants, hiring a wide receiver coach for a head coach now. Yeah. So, I don't know. Is this a regular thing? No, but when it happens, I mean, somebody saw something in him.
Right.
You know?
Right. I mean,
and look what happened to the Bengals this year. It must all just be because he was on the team holding them together before.
If a man stays in the same position for 15, 16 years, I mean, clearly he's doing something right.
Something's going right, or he knows somebody.
Right. I would like to think something was going right.
Yeah.
But then again, like it also wasn't like the head coach was changed. Marvin Lewis was still there for the entire tenure as well. So, I mean, you don't know. But
And you know what? It's you did talk about him being under Stoops for a while. I saw in his post-game conference for week 1, they asked about that, and he said he had a pretty good insight into what Stoops was going to do with his team, and he knew that it was probably going to be a defensive front. Like, this whole game was probably going to be defense versus defense, and that's where they were going to play it the hardest. Yeah. So I think that's pretty evident when you see it. Like, that's pretty much how the game went. It was, a defensive showcase for the most part.
Yeah, and you say that he had a pretty good idea. This is some more in-depth stuff. The offensive coordinator for the Dallas team, which a lot of us, not us, I don't, but a lot of our friends make fun of because he's just this older
with the towel,
gray-haired man. And he's actually, so there's the air raid offense. He's actually like the person that invented that. And the key to that offense is, well, it's very simple. There's not much to it. There's not like fakes or anything like that. It's basically just like, we're going to do this and do it better than you're going to stop it.
Yeah.
So like, it's not a hard defense to understand it's not a hard offense to understand as far as you playing defense against it. It's just, well, you got to stop it. Yeah. So they had a really good idea what was coming at them offensively. Yeah. And then you counter that with Hayes had a pretty good idea defensively what was coming from Stoops, because Stoops has played. I'm a Texas fan, so I know Bob Stoops' teams very well for the last like 20 years watching Texas versus Oklahoma. So I even could have been like, I have a pretty good idea what's coming defensively. But yeah, so I think that helped both ways, kind of having a pretty good idea of offensively and defensively what is coming at you, especially as your first head coaching game. Yeah. It's a little easier to grasp than if you're going up against, like, I don't know, Army's or Navy's triple option that they run 50 plays every game, but you still can't stop it somehow.
I mean, how many times did we just hear Blue 92 was the call? Right. Nonstop. Or run it again.
Yeah, in week 2, we had watched Dallas's game, and you had said something about Linda. Yeah. Like they kept calling Linda, and then when I rewatched game 1, I realized they keep calling it here too. Like I said, it's not a complicated offense, and they don't change things up a lot. So that's why you hear like the same things over and over again. Yeah. That's why, like, when you get all this on-field access of them getting mic'd up and everything, it's great. It's awesome, and you see like their calls offensively and them talking to each other, and it's like, when you hear Dallas's, it's like, well, this is the same thing they've been saying the entire.
Yeah, Blue 92, run it again, Linda. Yep.
Yep.
You could just have a soundboard and coach the team.
Pretty much. So him, Stoops, and Chuck Long, who is the offense coordinator, all went to Iowa. They all played together in Iowa. So yeah, they were saying that on the broadcast that apparently they would, I guess, drive out. Yeah. Together or something. Yeah, because Hayes is from close to Pittsburgh, and then not sure where Chuck Long's from, but Stoops is from Youngstown, I believe, Youngstown, Ohio. So they're all in the same area, and they went to Iowa together.
Great. I don't know. I'm excited for him. We haven't seen much in the way of coaching, but I think the attitude is pretty well ingrained within the team by now.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more from it. I'm excited. That's the only way you can put it. Just excited.
That's all I've got.
Week 1, really, if you're paying attention, gave you everything you need to know about the BattleHawks so far. Will that continue to week 2? We will discuss.
We will talk about that.
Yes. We will have the week 2 episode out ASAP. So look forward to getting the week 2 episode out. We are striving to upload every Wednesday from this point forward, although week 2 will be out before the games this weekend on Saturday. So look forward to it on Friday. Until that time, thank you guys so much for listening. I have a lot of hopes for the BattleHawks going forward. What about you?
I feel confident. Yeah. Championship or bust. Calling it right now.
The champion structure, we definitely know a lot about already.
Yes. Yeah.
But all right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. You guys have a good one, and we will catch you for the next week 2 discussion.
Go BattleHawks!
Ching, ching.